It is my pleasure to present to you today the Ashram Rare Earth Element and Fluorspar deposit in Quebec, Canada. I am the president of Commerce Resources. It's been a pleasure to be a shareholder of this company for over 20 years now. 1999, I was put some money into the seed financing round because my brother-in-law, Dave Hodge, said basically something along the lines of, you don't want to miss this one. In terms of Commerce Resources, we were very fortunate recently to raise just over $5.2 million in two financings. Over 3.2 was financed at 21 cents per share. And up until Jerome Powell's comments of last week, we were trading in the mid 40-cent range. And at the same time, we have taken in just over $400,000 in the exercise of warrants. And as Dorothy Parker says, rich or poor, money is good. In terms of our largest shareholder, that would be Zim2 Capital with 6.8 million shares, followed by EDE Asset Management in Toronto, who are led by a very smart fund manager by the name of Chiguo. And then third on that list would be the government of Quebec, Investissement Quebec, and they put $1 million into commerce in February of 2017. 1,000 years hence, the telephone and the motion picture camera may be obsolete, but the principle of the rotating magnetic field will remain a vital living thing for all time to come. Nikola Tesla, circa 1900. And those words, or the second part of that statement, the rotating magnetic field being of importance, have never been more true than they are today. And this goes for everything that has an electric motor, from your electric toothbrush to your Dyson vacuum cleaner to your leaf blower. The new one that we bought in the last year almost levitates by itself. You have to actually hold on to it. It's crazy. Or to your electric vehicle. In terms of rare earth elements and the current state of demand, the current trajectory of demand, you're looking at a rare earth element supply gap of significance. In terms of this, there will have to be several new rare earth elements projects to come into production to meet this future demand. In terms of the ongoing increasing demand for rare earth elements, yes, rare earth elements or electric vehicles are a big part of that, especially the battery electric vehicles, the fully electric vehicles. And this chart from Deutsche Bank, you can see up to potentially a 25% penetration rate by battery electric vehicles by 2030. These numbers are appreciating very significantly every year. In terms of rare earth element projects, the question to be asked is, what are the three most important things for a successful rare earth element project? Those would be mineralization, mineralization, and mineralization. In terms of mineralization, there are over 150 rare earth minerals, that is, minerals that host rare earth elements, but only 4 of those have been commercialized. They would be monazite, bastnasite, xenotime, and loperite. Monazite, bastnasite, and xenotime account for over 80% of global production. Only monazite, bastnasite, and xenotime mineralogies are amenable to producing high-grade mineral concentrates of better than 40%. And in terms of geology, the host rock type for over 80% of global production is also the carbonatite. The Ashram deposit has all of these traits, along with a demonstrated ability to produce high grade, better than 45% rare earth element concentrates at high recoveries. In terms of these rare earth element bearing minerals, the top 3, bastnasite, monazite, and xenotime, can all hold over 65% of rare earth elements in their formulation, their matrix. You can see that loperite is the laggard of these 4 that are commercialized, and loperite hosted deposits only exist in the Kola Peninsula on the western border of Russia, and are produced and by the Russian company Solikamsk. Below that, you can see allanite, apatite, eudialyte, etc. And there is no commercialized rare earth element project hosted by these minerals, mainly because they can't host very much rare earth element minerals in themselves. In terms of us comparing to global producers of rare earth elements, These are the dominant current commercial producers of rare earth elements: Bionobo, Linus, MP Materials with Mountain Pass, then in Sichuan, Weishan, etc. And then there's the Ashram Project. As you can see, all of these projects are carbonatites, or in the case of Linus, a laterite, which is a weathered carbonatite. And all of these are either monazite, bastnasite, or bastnasite, as we are very similar to the world's largest producer, which is Bionobo. Bionobo is located in Baotao, China. It is the world's largest rare earth producer, producing approximately 45% of all of the world's supply. The Ashram is one of the world's largest defined resources for rare earth elements. Bionobo is, we believe, the world's largest fluorspar deposit, and the Ashram, we believe, is the world's second largest fluorspar deposit. We're both carbonatite-hosted deposits. We both have monazite-dominant mineralogy with a bastnasite secondary. And I'll draw your attention to the last bullet point here, where we actually have a higher percentage of the neodymium praseodymium than does Bionobo. In terms of the location of the Ashram deposit, we're located in the top third of Quebec, which is actually called Nunavik. I would suggest that this is the best area to jurisdiction to advance a mining project in what is arguably the best jurisdiction for advancing a mining project, or one of the best in the world. Nunavik is especially good because it's under what is called the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, which is a streamlined agreement with clear mechanisms in place for Indigenous dialogue, consultation, resource management. And this being so codified as it is, it makes the job of the company easier to advance a project. As well, while I'm on that note, we're very fortunate and very happy to have a letter of intent with the two dominant corporations representing the dominant social group, the Inuit. Those corporations would be the Niobium and the Makivik, and that was signed 2 years ago. In terms of this road at the center of the province and why we've highlighted it in orange, this road was financed by the Quebec government. And I was in a meeting with a banker in New York several years ago, and I was with the head fund manager from Investissement Quebec. And he said to this banker, "We're the Quebec government, we're the largest shareholder in Stornoway Diamonds, and we built them a 200-kilometer long road. This company is Commerce Resources. We're going to put $1 million into them, and we're going to build them a 180-kilometer long road." Well, they did put $1 million into Commerce Resources in February of 2017, and they still are talking about financing the road in this area, which would benefit so many other companies, not just one. It would not just be a driveway to the Ashram. There are at least 7 companies active with projects in the area, including Seville Resources, Golden Valley, NextSource Materials, Northern Shield, and Midland. And Osisko have a project just to the west here a little bit, and arguably they would benefit from this road as well. In terms of our preliminary economic assessment, these are some of the economic details from that as it was released in 2012. A pre-tax NPV of $2.3 billion, a pre-tax internal rate of return of 44%, payback in less than 2.5 years for a cap cost of $763 million, including the arguably too high cost for the road and the barge facility, which we've reduced by about $60 million down to around $200 million. In terms of these economics, one of the things I would like to draw your attention to is that there were no byproducts included in the PEA. In terms of our current resource, we have 1.6 million tons in the measured category, 27.7 million tons in the indicated category, and 219.8 million tons in the inferred category. This was based upon approximately 25,000 meters of drilling, and we have drilled 9,600 meters since that time, and I'm very much looking forward to the new resource, which will be released as part of the pre-feasibility study. In terms of the fluorspar resource we have, you can see it over here in the purple, and it varies between 4.5 up to 8.6% fluorspar in the deposit. In terms of the all-important magnet feed rare earth elements. That would be praseodymium, neodymium, terbium oxide, and dysprosium oxide. And as I said earlier, we have one of the highest percentages of these four rare earth elements combined. 24.7 in our middle heavy rare earth element zone is higher than Linus's, is higher than Bayan-Obo, is higher than MP Materials at Mountain Pass in California. Yes, Jerry Maguire. At the end of the day, mining is all about making money. Hopes, dreams, all of those things are great. But at the end of the day, you need to show the people you will be making money. In terms of the economics and the inputs of rare earth element prices as we use them in 2012, you can see them under this Ashram PEA price deck, and you can see them where they are today. These prices have been appreciating on a daily basis over the last month thereabouts, and arguably that is coming from real demand exceeding real supply. In terms of what is most important in terms of these rare earth elements, I would suggest that is neodymium. In terms of, as the following bullet point states, roughly 2/3 of this value is from neodymium itself. And just to look at neodymium's increase in value since 2012 from $60 a kilo to $108 a kilo today. However, terbium's price increase is pretty spectacular, being a double from where it was in 2012. At any rate, the other point is that, yes, you can see that dysprosium is a laggard in terms of not appreciating back to where it was in 2012, but that is fundamentally from a certain limited success in global R&D on magnet manufacturing, which is that in 2010, the average permanent magnet had 13% dysprosium. The average permanent magnet today only has 1% dysprosium, and that 12% difference is picked up by these other three, terbium, neodymium, and praseodymium. And that's why they are more important to our economics. In terms of the Ashram deposit flow sheet, it basically doesn't get any more standard, any more simple than this flow sheet below. I would like to draw your attention, though, to the magnetic separation, at which point we produce two saleable concentrates, essentially a 45 to 50% rare earth element concentrate and a better than 80% fluorspar concentrate, which would be called basically a MET spar, a metallurgical grade acid spar, which could be saleable to the aluminum industry or the steel making industry, in so much as fluorspar, MET spar, is used as a flux stabilizer in the production of aluminum and steel. In terms of this fluorspar byproduct, as I mentioned earlier, the value of this was not included in the PEA. There is no additional cost to recover fluorspar at this stage of processing, and there's no negative impact on rare earth element recovery. In actual fact, down here, it says it may lead to additional rare earth element recovery, and we're certainly interested to see this economic benefit in our pre-feasibility study. This is a slide with a photograph of the better than 98% fluorspar, acid-grade fluorspar sample that we delivered in December to a global commodities trader as per their request, which they deemed a commercially marketable product. The interesting thing about this is that this acid spar right now is probably worth in the range of $600 US per ton, but the really interesting thing is this material, which comes out for free, is worth somewhere in the range of that price as well, mainly because of the increased amount of infrastructure building, which is arguably seen as an economic offset to COVID, with so many countries building such large infrastructure projects. And so the fact that MET spar is worth equal to acid spar is very interesting to us. This is the assay from that sample here, and I'll only say that we expect to be able to reduce some of the outstanding impurities further. In terms of the defined resource we have of fluorspar right now, a 25-year mine life producing over 70,000 tons of MET spar per annum would only represent approximately 15% of the total resource. Yes, it is a very large deposit. Large deposit for rare earth elements and very large deposit for fluorspar. In terms of where our pilot plant is located, it is at what is arguably the Western world's most highly respected and regarded R&D facility, which is Hazen Research in Golden, Colorado, which is about a mile down the road from the Coors Original Brewery. This is Nick Hazen in the bottom corner, standing on a ladder by one of the column flotations, working as part of our pilot plant. I'm also excited to say that we're in the process of restarting this pilot plant. And with the restart of this pilot plant, we look forward to supplying the samples as requested by other industry majors. In terms of what we have already produced at our pilot plant, we've produced concentrates in the 45 to 50% range, and you can see that these compare favorably with all of the current global producers in terms of concentrate grades. Mountain Pass can produce a slightly higher concentrate, as can Maoping, but by Onobo, their concentrate grades range from like 35 to just over 60. And the Ashram is 45 to 50, which is better than Linus can with their project. In terms of today's news, I'm extremely excited by the delivery of this 44% rare earth element concentrate to a third-party processor. This material is slightly lower grade than what we have previously produced at the pilot plant, but this material was upgraded from 9 kilograms of leach residue, which Nick Hazen found in November 2020. And so we did some quick upgrading on this, and a 44% rare earth element concentrate is certainly marketable. As well, I would draw your attention to the percentage of neodymium praseodymium at 21.2%, and that is extremely attractive. In terms of other companies that have requested material from us, this is a partial list. We have several majors, international majors under non-disclosure with us right now, but this is a partial list of the companies that have requested material from us. The first one I would like to mention, though, is Solvay, which is the world's largest rare earth element processor that is not a Chinese company. And on the day I became president, which was September 15th, 2014, we were touring at their invitation Solvay's SX solvent extraction facility in the town of La Rochelle on the west coast of France. And that is the world's first fully functional solvent extraction rare earth element processing facility. The reality is that that facility has the capacity of processing 12,000 tons per annum, but they were only processing approximately 2,000 tons per annum at that point in time. So they were very vocal about their interest in a sample from Commerce Resources. In terms of ESG, this is something that seems to be popping up in different corporate presentations at this point in time, but this is something that we have always been concerned about in terms of making sure that our projects, wherever they are, British Columbia, Quebec, are abiding by the highest corporate practices and also are going to be good for the dominant social group that lives closest to the project. In regards to this, in 2015, 6 years ago, we were awarded the E3 Plus Award, which is essentially from the Quebec Mining Association for excellence in terms of environmental and social practices. And our environmental and social manager, project manager, is Murray Smith at the center of this picture. In summation, the Ashram Rare Earth Element and fluorspar deposit is the most standard type of rare earth element deposit that is in operation today, a monazite dominant carbonatite. We have a huge resource. We're located in a great jurisdiction. We have produced high-grade rare earth element concentrates. We released positive economics in 2012, not including any byproducts. The addition of the fluorspar byproduct will add significant economic benefit to our economics, and the pre-feas at this point in time is underway. Thank you very much for your attention today. It's a pleasure to present to you, and I would look forward to any other questions you might have.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to just go ahead and let them know or put them in the chat as well.
Chris, what's the next stage?
Ken, the next stage is the restart of the pilot plant and the production of samples for those other industry majors, such as Solvay, mainly because Solvay cannot accept a concentrate with any thorium in it. And so we will be looking at producing those kinds of concentrates with the pilot plant. And secondly, we will be looking at, hopefully, sometime this summer at a drilling program, sharing the mobilization costs of the drill rig with our sister company, Civil Resources. So we're very excited about that. However, even before we see new production from the pilot plant, what we will see is a release of the reports from the last operation of the pilot plant, mainly because we put the pilot plant on a hard stop back in 2015, 2016. And those outstanding metallurgical reports will detail those concentrates that grade between 45 and 50%.
When will you need the road built and the wharfage?
Well, I'm very happy you asked me that, Ken, because we don't need the road to be built. We're up at around the 61st parallel on the Canadian Shield. It's hard rock interspersed by little bogs and little creeks. And winter up there is at least 6 months of the year. And so in actual fact, we don't need an all-weather road. We can be operational with an ice road for however long we want. A decade. It doesn't really matter up there. So, I mean, you know, to give you an idea, shipping out of Ungava Bay at this point in time can really only happen for about 4 months a year. So in terms of actual production, if we produce 12 months a year, we transport over an ice road for 6 months of the year to a warehouse facility. And then 4 months of the year, we're shipping out about 30,000 tons every week for approximately a minimum of 10 weeks. And that would be essentially the full 12 months of production. Actually, 350,000 tons would be the amount of flotation concentrate we would be looking at shipping out per annum through Ungava Bay through that 4-month period. But using the ice road for at least half the year is no problem at all.
To get to a production area or level, you're going to have to get in heavy equipment and buildings and that. How would they be brought in?
Oh, helicopter, C3, those kind of things. You know, we've brought in heavy equipment before, and when the lake that we're proximal to is frozen solid as a rock, as it is for like 6 months of the year, easy peasy, bringing that kind of stuff in.
Okay.
Okay, great. And we just have Leonard here. We'll make sure to send you the presentation, Leonard, if you send us your email here. Otherwise, if you don't feel comfortable putting your email in the chat, we can, oh, he's got it here. So yeah, we'll make sure that we send that to you. And anybody else who wanted the presentation as well, put your email in the chat and we'll be happy to send that out. Like I said in the chat as well, the video will be posted on Zim2's YouTube page and all over social media too. So if you want to watch the recorded version, we can do that as well.
Thanks, Colton.
Yeah, no problem. And if, again, anybody has any questions, speak up. Otherwise, Chris will have another presentation and we can pull that up as well.
Thursday at 10.
Yeah, so Thursday.
Sorry, Wednesday.
Sorry, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock.
A quick question for you, Chris.
Yes, ma'am.
Is your project scalable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kind of things that we will be looking at in the pre-feasibility study is the minimum scale of operation. The current preliminary economic assessment scale was an extraction of 4,000 tons per day. 6 years ago, there was a suggestion by the world's largest rare earth element magnet manufacturer, the Japanese company Shinetsu, who we met in the fall of 2015. And they said, 16,000 tons seems like a lot of material. Could you be operational with something much smaller, like 5,000 tons per annum? And so certainly that is something that we will look at. I mean, we're not really looking for savings in terms of economies of scale, and that's not exactly why we went to 16,000 tons plus. But in terms of it being scalable, I mean, with the size of the resource being approximately 250 million tons, you're looking at, even at the current production scenario, 4,000 tons per day being 1.4 million tons per year. 250 million tons divided by 1.4, you're looking at close to 200 years of production there. And then the deposit we've only drilled it down to below 600 meters where it's consistent mineralization from surface all the way down to below 600 meters. And so the deposit arguably continues to the center of the earth. So in terms of scale, certainly a fair question would be to try to figure out if we could, produce as much as Bayan-Obo produces on an annual basis. And so, we'll certainly look at all of those numbers as we look to complete the pre-feasibility study. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, my question was mainly because of the capex that would be required, and with the full production, obviously the capex is like $700 million. And whereas if we were to have it scaled back, it is possible to have perhaps the capex at a more manageable level, especially if nobody was coming up front with funding.
Well, here, let me answer that question by two ways. A, the $763 million includes $260 million for the road. So considering that we could be operational with just an ice road, now we're down to $500 million. In terms of the economics, as they were in the preliminary economic assessment, and in terms of the investment bankers here in Vancouver, when I visited some of those, like the investment banking division of BMO here, who in their boardroom have over 30 tombstones from previous mining companies they have financed into operation, and those financings range from, a low ball of 130 million to $3.5 billion. The investment banker basically said to me he had never seen economics such as what we had in the PEA, like a $2.3 billion NPV and a 44% internal rate of return. Those are the kind of economics that get investment bankers very excited. And the first thing he said to me was, I guess I need to know more about rare earth elements. So I think a debt facility for whatever the CapEx is going to be attractive to the financial industry. And to get to that point of the completion of the bankable feasibility study, I would suggest that a partnership, a project level investment with an industry player, an industry major for either of our two commodities, the fluorspar or the rare earth elements, is quite possible.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Chris, we do have a question in the chat from Leonard. Will your optimization studies consider shifting some activity to a location where power and regions are available?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in terms of it, I mean, the Ashram is basically two projects. We have an on-site extraction and the flotation concentrate produced there, where we are very able to reduce the mass by 75%. So we're only shipping out approximately 25% of the extraction, the daily extraction. So a 4,000 ton per day extraction means we're only shipping out 1,000 tons of flotation concentrate. So we're talking about very easy, operation, gravity separation on site. Then we get the material, that concentrate, to Tidewater. We put it on a ship, and we're in very good touch with the dominant shipping company in the area, which is called the Northeastern Arctic Shipping Company, which the Makivik Corporation owns 51% of, and we have an LOI with the Makivik, of course. And anyways, NIAS then would ship it around to our downstream processing facility, which would be located somewhere on the St. Lawrence, somewhere like Matan or Bécancour. And Bécancour is where NIAS have just opened up a new docking facility. So at the end of the day, easy peasy again, would be doing the downstream hydrometallurgical processing at a facility that is in an industrial park like Bécancour. But, that designation or that has not been ascertained at this point in time. But yes, there would be essentially two projects. And then from the facility, the processing facility, and why it would be located on the St. Lawrence is because the only waste product is salt water. And so you're able to discharge it into the brackish St. Lawrence at that point. And then at that point, producing either a mineral concentrate or a chemical concentrate that could be trucked into the United States or put on a rail car, or for the chemical concentrate, shipped straight out from Bécancour to Solvay's facility on the west coast of France.
Chris,
Hey,
what is the demand in the U.S., both the domestic demand as well as the military demand? Do you have any measure for that?
Well, that number is basically growing, but in terms of demand or U.S. demand specifically, or even Western world demand, this is something very new. And so I would point to, first off, for the companies like Albemarle, W.R. Grace, that source Chinese rare earth elements, specifically cerium and lanthanum, to then produce or process oil into gasoline, which would be lanthanum, and secondly, cerium to manufacture catalytic converters, again for internal combustion engine vehicles. That is both those rare earth elements have very big markets in the United States because of the auto industry in the United States. In terms of the other rare earth elements and in terms of the magnet feeds, that is something that's just in its early stages right now. You have a whole list of companies in the United States that are looking to be commercial manufacturers of rare earth element permanent magnets, arguably led by the Texas-based company called Urban Mining. And yes, they're on our list of companies that have requested a sample from us. Urban Mining received a grant of $29 million from the U.S. Department of Defense in October of last year. So they're just in the process of building out their manufacturing facility. At this point in time, there really is very little demand for those specific products that will be brought to market by, say, Energy Fuels, et cetera, excepting for the cerium and the lanthanum, which are only really sourced from Chinese processors today.
With the auto industry going from the gasoline engine over to electrical, and many of the big manufacturers indicating that they're going to go 100% electric in the next 10 years, isn't that going to make a big demand for this?
Oh, absolutely. And that was one of the charts, I had in there from Deutsche Bank. The increased demand and for electric vehicles and full battery electric vehicles is arguably going to continue to increase exponentially. And ultimately, I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl, but the Will Ferrell ad for General Motors talking about how Norway is beating the United States in the construction of electric cars. That was an hilarious little ad, but very timely and very accurate. Other countries are way in advance of the United States in terms of EV penetration. And so we're really at a bit of a crossroads, I would say, or, an inflection point right now with the U.S. Consumer purchasing more electric vehicles. And obviously, people like Tesla looking to reduce the sticker price of an electric vehicle. But yeah, that's the way of the future of the world, the whole world.
Thank you.
I would point out that Saudi Aramco, the world's largest IPO, that happened in November of 2019. And if anybody who saw that news release didn't think that was a wake up and smell the coffee news release, arguably, the management of Saudi Aramco have said publicly they believe peak oil is 2035. I would suggest that around the boardroom table in Riyadh, they're thinking 2024, maybe 2025 is peak oil. And as they said in their news release about the world's largest IPO, over $1 trillion, they said, we believe we need to diversify. So, to me, that was a defining moment as fossil fuels are essentially, or the world is transitioning away from fossil fuels.